In this episode today, we're going to talk about what you can do to craft a better relationship between your students and teachers. Whether you're in the classroom, outside of the classroom, I have a very special guest who's going to show us what we can do on a practical basis to make sure that students are getting along with teachers and teachers are getting along with students. Let's elevate. Hey, what's up? I am Kantis Simmons, the academic guru, as well as the host of Educate to Elevate, and welcome to another episode of this great podcast, all designed to help teachers, principals, educators, counselors, school administrators, coaches, and anyone that's in the service of serving students. And today, of course, you see I have an amazing, beautiful guest with me today. If you guys would, welcome to the Educate to Elevate podcast, Miss Veronica Crafton.
Hello, hello. I'm so glad to be here.
So, Veronica, do you remember how we met?
Absolutely.
Okay, so Veronica and I, we registered for this nonprofit. It was like a nonprofit seminar.
Right.
It was downtown Atlanta, and during this seminar, the facilitator broke us up into groups, and we were going to first of all, understand what it means to, develop a nonprofit and how to go about finding grants and everything. Right. So I ended up with Veronica in my group. And Veronica just became I will take the notes, I will record everything, I will keep everything organized for the group. And
Nobody was volunteering.
But I was just so amazed of just how detailed you were. And as we sat in that session, even afterwards, I was really able to hear your story and hear everything that you've been doing in the school systems, working with teachers, parents, and students. And I, just wanted you to come on today to talk to my people and enhance the world on the great message that you have crafted where you're helping people. So again, welcome to this podcast, Miss Veronica Crafton.
Thank you.
So Veronica, I know you spent some time in the classroom.
Yes.
So take us back before the classroom. How did you end up in the classroom? Was that because of a mom, dad, aunt, uncle? How did that come about?
Well, actually, I never wanted to be a teacher. It actually just kind of happened. I was working at a facility called the Marcus Institute. Now it's known as the Marcus Autism Center. And I was at an entry-level position. I loved the job. That's where I really fell in love with the population that I work with, children with autism. And, I learned so much there. It was really a training ground. And it was awesome, but it did not pay that much. And see, when you're out of college, you think you start making some money, and then you start paying bills, and this actually isn't a lot of money. So I was trying to find something else to get into where I could make a little more money. Now, you guys know what teacher salaries are, so if I needed to make more money, you know how much I wasn't making. So a lot of my friends were transitioning out of the facility, and they were getting teachers, provisional teacher's license, and going into these counties and teaching in school districts. And so I said, okay, that sounds like my ticket. I had a bachelor's in psychology, and there's not too much you can do with a bachelor's in psychology. So I applied for a teaching position with Cobb County School District with the same population of students I was working with, and I got the job pretty much on the spot. And it actually happened to be the manager, or the principal, as well as the supervisor for the classroom that I would be teaching was there for the interview, and I got the job. So I became a teacher by happenstance.
All right. So once you were in the classroom, and I know that you mentioned about your work with autism, What was it about the classroom that sort of piqued your interest more? Maybe there was something in the classroom that you said, wow, I really want to serve in this area.
Well, what really attracted me once I did become a teacher to the classroom is the ability to have full control. I was very fortunate in the program that I taught in. I taught with the GNETS program, that's the Georgia Network of Educational and Therapeutic Services. And I had a lot of freedom in my classroom. So I was able to create lesson plans that I wanted to. I was able to tailor what my students needed, all their individual needs. I could tailor my lessons to them specifically. And it really helped me, to be creative, to make sure the kids were making progress. So having that control and not really being in that box that some teachers kind of have to stay in, that really encouraged me and inspired me to, stay in the classroom. And I felt like I was really making a difference.
Right. So I know that you work on the elementary level, and I mean, you've seen probably some of the videos, you've heard the stories.
Yes.
The challenges that we've had, that you've probably seen in your classroom, or even in your school, in your district, where relationships between student and student, relationships between teacher and student, relationship between teacher and teacher, relationships between teacher and the administrators. In a lot of schools, I've talked to a lot of educators, and in some cases, teaching is not the issue.
Absolutely.
A lot of times it's the politics behind that.
Absolutely.
But in some cases, we have situations where some teachers feel like, well, I don't want to teach anymore because the students are hard-headed, or the students feel like no one can tell them anything.
Yes.
I know that you work in this area of teacher-student relationship.
Yes.
How did you get into that area? What was it about that you said, I want to help out in this area?
Well, after my 6th year of teaching, I started to learn the school system and, saw a lot of things in my school building. And one thing that I noticed was that teachers outside of my classroom, and mind you, I had a pretty tough classroom. That's how they would describe it. It was pretty much a student's last opportunity to be in a regular school before going into a separate day program. So I had the tough kids. I loved them. They were easy for me. But I noticed that there were other teachers in general ed classrooms that were having some problem behaviors with their students. And they would come to me and say, Veronica, what do you think I should do? What are some methods I can use? And I would help them and say, you know what? It's not just my kids. It's really all kids.
Wow. And
all kids, some kids may have behavior issues. Some kids may have family issues going on at home. Basically, the point is all teachers need help. And so that really inspired me to step out on my own. So after my 6th year of teaching, I said, you know what? I am going to use my gifts and talents in other places because I felt like I was in a box. Being a teacher and knowing what I know and having the ability to help other teachers, I was very limited. So in order to break out of that box, I felt like it was time to step out on my own. And that's exactly what I did when I started Amazingly Uplifted.
Amazingly Uplifted.
Amazingly Uplifted, LLC.
Yes. Tell me why you call it Amazingly Uplifted.
Well, like you said, so many times I know teachers can get so discouraged. It's so hard. And people don't understand it, You can tell your friends, your non-teacher friends, and they're like, oh, okay, but you get summers off.
Right.
Like, yeah, it takes me 2 months to recoup from what just happened over the last 10 months. So, the struggles of being a teacher, it's not just about the kids. Like you said, it's the politics, it's the parents, it's the relationships. It's worrying about the kids that may be homeless or maybe going through things at home. And that has nothing to do with your lesson, but you have to take that into consideration when you're teaching your student. So all of those factors, and I just wanted the teachers to remember to be uplifted. And not just uplifted, but be amazingly uplifted. Be excited about it.
In the previous episode of Educate to Elevate, it was all about good teachers don't quit. And I was amazed. I didn't realize that video was going to be watched as much as it is. Right now, the other day, I was like 17,000 views. But I was looking at the comments of the teachers.
Yeah.
And a lot of them will talk about, I'm stressed out. I don't know, Kantis, you say good teachers don't quit, but this goes on, that goes on. So I wanted to do this episode with you to continue on that vein to make sure our teachers stay uplifted. Okay, so what can teachers practically do in the classroom to improve their teacher-student relationship or improve just the overall atmosphere in the classroom, how they relate with their students?
Okay, well, to have a crafty classroom, I believe the first step is...
I like that.
You like it? Do you see what I did there?
Crafty.
Crafty.
Veronica Crafton. Okay, I got you.
Crafty classroom. Got it? Following me? So to have a crafty classroom, you want to first develop a classroom culture. And that is something that has to be done at the very beginning. Once you get your students engaged in understanding who you are, what you stand for, the things that you believe in as a classroom culture, the things that you want to do, want to accomplish, the things that won't be tolerated, the things that you really want to impose on the students as far as just being a good citizen. You want to start that very soon and very early on day one. And the thing about creating a classroom culture, it's not just you.
Right.
Of course, we have our idea, okay, we have the 5 rules. We want to be nice, follow directions, be respectful, turn in your homework. We want to do all of that, of course. But we want the students to tell us because we want them to be able to say this, that gives them an opportunity to take ownership.
So in creating this culture, would you start a discussion with the students and ask them, hey, what would you like in this classroom? How would you practically do that?
Absolutely. So on the first day of school, or even if the first day of school has already started and you just want to revamp, and this is a perfect time because they have the break and you're coming back in January. But, just sit down with the class. Hey, guys, what do you think is going well in this classroom? What are some things that aren't going well? What can we do? Not saying you guys, but what can we do? Because you're part of this team too, and you want them to know that you're not just expecting them to work, but you're going to work too. So what can we do to make our classroom better? What can we do to make this class the best second grade class in the whole school? What can we do? So getting them involved and engaged in how they want to be represented.
Creating the culture. Okay. What about number 2?
Number 2, you really, really, really want to make sure that you are understanding who your students are. You want to be relatable to your students. Know what they like, know what they're going through, be relatable, because the more they feel that you are interested in them, the more likely it is for them to be able to really listen to you and understand that, okay, they're not just telling me this because she's my teacher and she's barking at me and telling me what to do, but she actually cares about what's going on with me. So let me in turn do what it is that he or she needs me to do as a student. So building that relationship is key and critical.
So remember that song with Beyonce? It's, it was like to the left, everything you own in the box to the left.
Yeah.
Like if you don't know,
you must not know about me.
Right, all of that. And she says, you're irreplaceable.
Yes.
I like to encourage teachers to, like you just said, to be relatable.
Absolutely.
And I found that most students remember, after they gone through elementary, high school, maybe go to college, you remember those teachers that did a great job of relating with you.
Absolutely.
Those teachers that maybe they said something or they showed you that they cared, and those were the ones that you remember year after year, decade after decade. Yes. So you're saying that being relatable is so powerful.
Yes, because people don't remember what you said always, but they will always remember how you made them feel. And it's the same things with students, especially our little ones. They remember how you make them feel. So even though you may run into some bumps in the road, remembering that they're really looking for that relatability and how you relate to them.
Okay, so first of all, we have create a classroom culture.
Absolutely.
Make sure that one of the ways you can better relate with students is by being relatable, showing them that you care. And what would be another one?
This is the big one. The big one. Are you ready? It's catching behaviors. Now, what does that mean? Catching behaviors. I go into school districts and I help teachers with students who may have what we call problem behaviors, okay? And a lot of times there are things that students are doing to kind of give you a little hint that something may just happen. So you can catch behaviors before they happen, on just knowing your student, knowing things to look for, and what to do beforehand. So it's very important that you understand that behavior, all it is communication. If you have a student that may be acting out, they're trying to communicate something, or they are communicating something to you that you may not be understanding or may not see at first hand. And there are 4 typical functions of behavior. So the first function of behavior is attention. So the child is doing something because they want attention. Exactly. We all want attention, right? So it's just about how you go about doing it the right way and shaping that behavior to say, okay, well, you can't get my attention this way, but you can get my attention in a more appropriate way. Another one we all know, and we all do this also, is to escape from a task. It's called avoidance. How many times in our life do we put off things? Do we procrastinate things, or do we create something else and to do when we should be doing something else? Our task avoidance, big time. That's what we do sometimes. Another reason is because a person may want something. So they're acting out because they, either want recess, they want a break, they want candy, they want something. And then the last one, which we don't necessarily see too much in the general ed classrooms, but the last one is there's something internally going on to where it's feeding them internally. So for example, with my students with autism, or with anyone with autism, you may see them flapping their hands, okay? That does something for them internally. What it is, we may not necessarily know, but it's giving them feedback. Now, in the general education classroom setting, we usually see attention-seeking behaviors and task avoidance behaviors. So if you can understand the function of the student's behavior, it'll help you create a proactive and effective method to change that behavior, have a better relationship with the student, and get the best out of the student, and possibly stop those behaviors from occurring.
So we have attention, avoidance. What's the third one?
Tangible. So they want something.
They want something. The last one?
The last one is sensory based. That's what we call it, sensory based. And that one you don't see too much in the general education classroom setting.
I know the other day you was telling me about this young man, and the school that you were working with, one of the teachers called you in and said she didn't realize that you knew the young man from another organization.
Yes.
And she called, what was his name?
Well, we'll call him Katie.
Okay, all right, so yeah. The teacher called you in about Katie and said, Katie is this, and Katie is this, and Katie is that. And when you got to the classroom, you was like, is this the Katie you're talking about?
I teach KD in Sunday school. This is not KD.
So what was your advice to that teacher?
Well, for that teacher in particular, it was more so maybe taking a step back and looking at what could possibly be going on with him, what's happening before the behaviors occur, and then also what does the classroom structure look like? So you want to see, okay, well, is it just this student that's doing this, or are there other students that are doing this? How is my classroom structure? Am I following through with the things that I say I'm going to do? If I say, if you do that one more time, you're going to time out, and you don't send them to time out, well, then you taught that child that you don't really mean what you say. And, it's very typical, and it kind of goes in line, too, with sometimes how, parents treat their children. And that's why so many times as teachers, we call our students our babies, because that's how we feel, right? And so it's just very important to stick with what you say you're going to do when it comes to consequence and following through. And then also, sometimes we don't know that we're doing this, but sometimes we teach students to ignore us.
Wow. Talk about that.
So if I say to you, can you please go get that paper off of the desk for me? And he doesn't do it.
Like this?
Yeah, pretty much. And I say, all right, I need you to go get that paper. Still doesn't do it. You need to go get the paper.
You know what? My mom, that was my issue as a child. My mama said, hey, go clean the dishes. Can't go clean the dishes. Then the next thing I know, she's either throwing something at me, go clean the dishes, and now I'm responding. How can we stop that?
Well, follow through with your consequence, because as teachers, we can't throw things. So, when you're doing that, you're teaching that child that it's okay to ignore you because there's no consequence for it, right? So you want to make sure that you're following through. If there's a consequence that's set in place for not following directions, follow through with it. And here's another trick that I like to tell teachers about. Always make sure that the students understand and you have a dialogue with your students. So say, hey class, what happens if you don't complete your work before recess? And the class says, you don't get to go to recess.
Right.
You have to stay in and do your work during recess. So now you have made sure that the students understand what the rule is. So you're no longer the bad guy when little Johnny comes up and his work isn't done when it could have been done before recess. And you can just say to him, well, Johnny, what did we say the rule was about?
He's already
already said it. So what did we say the rule was about not completing your homework before or not completing your assignment before recess? Well, that means you can't go. Oh, okay, well, I just have to follow the rules.
Right.
You're no longer the bad guy. You're just following the rules. So it's important to make sure that your students understand, you empower them with the knowledge, and then the rest is up to them because you want them to be responsible for their choices. And that's something that I'm seeing a lot of times in the classroom. A lot of teachers are saying, these kids aren't taking ownership. They're not being held accountable or, responsible for their actions. That's one way to do it, is to make sure that they understand.
Wow, I love these crafty ways to improve teacher-student relationships. So we talked about creating a culture. We talked about being relatable and showing them that you care. And then also we talked about, what was the phrase? Something behavior?
Yeah, understanding behavior, catching the behavior.
Catching the behavior. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Was that helpful for you?
I hope so.
So Veronica, you have a website, Amazingly Uplifted.
Yes, amazinglyuplifted.com.
So if you are a superintendent, school district counselor, and you would love to have Veronica come in and work with your teachers and your staff, you simply go to amazinglyuplifted.com. If you're a special ed coordinator and want some understanding how you can improve that area of your school district, just simply go over to amazinglyuplifted.com. You have our number and phone number there, and I'll make sure that I put it here on the video as well as the show notes.
Thank you.
Well, Veronica, I appreciate you coming out to help us craft better ways to relate with our students.
Yes.
Like always, if you've enjoyed this podcast and you know other teachers, principal coordinators, maybe professors, counselors that could benefit from this, be so kind to share the love. Share. Right. Don't be so greedy with the knowledge.
Absolutely.
Right? But again, I'm Kantis Simmons. This is Veronica Crafton. And remember this, there's only one game in life that counts, and that's your A game. We'll see you soon.
Bye.